LeMay, America's Car Museum. Since 2012, this architectural wonder of a building has been a gathering place where car enthusiasts from around the world have come to honor and admire automotive treasures from the past and learn how they shaped American culture. It is also a place where visitors can celebrate the present advances of the automobile industry and to drive forward the future generations of car culture by teaching and inspiring today's youth. From the expansive permanent collection donated to the museum by Harold and Nancy LeMay, to the world-class rotating exhibits, education programs, car shows, signature events, family and community activities, America's Car Museum represents so much more than just a museum of cars. It is an homage to American automotive heritage. Let's take a step back to how it all began. Harold and Nancy LeMay amassed the largest privately owned collection of automobiles, other vehicles, and related memorabilia in the world. At its peak, the LeMay collection numbered in excess of 3,000 vehicles and thousands of artifacts. In the late 1990s, the LeMays had the vision to donate a comprehensive part of their collection for public benefit as a not-for-profit, charitable museum organization to preserve and interpret the history and technology of the automobile and its influence upon American culture. With the assistance of business leaders from their home city of Tacoma, Washington, they began feasibility studies for a permanent home for the collection and eventually acquired a substantial federal planning grant to begin development. Progress was slowed by Harold's untimely death in November 2000. However, Nancy remained committed to the fulfillment of Harold's dream that the LeMay collection be preserved for posterity, accessible to the public at the museum as well as at the LeMay family collection at Marymount.
He wanted the young people to know the history about the vehicles, of why they were what they were, who used them, why they used them that way, and I think he did a good job. And particularly in this museum, I mean, we have so many vehicles that tell a story. And that's what he wanted, the history of the automobile to be, translated through the years to, so people wouldn't forget how important the vehicle particularly were in the early times.
Nancy's son Doug shares Harold's passion for car collecting and continues to do so to this day.
Dad influenced me by, he was always very positive. If something happened, he'd say, well, but we got this out of it, he didn't dwell in the past. Other than the history of the cars, it wasn't just cars, it was machinery, farm equipment, whatever. He knew the story.
2002 to 2007 were vibrant years of new initiatives and opportunities. After a nationwide search, David Madera was hired as CEO in 2002, bringing his extensive experience in strategic planning and philanthropic development.
You have to be different and you have to be bigger, which is why what was the LeMay Museum became LeMay America's Car Museum. We had to embrace the love, that passion for America, America's cars and our experience, right? So it was think big, always have a big vision. The people who founded it, Nancy doing it for Harold, right? Yeah. That was all about community and this belonged here.
Through a gift from the city of Tacoma, 9 acres of land and improvements adjacent to the Tacoma Dome were provided to become the location for what would be the stunning LeMay America's Car Museum. Sponsors, growing membership, and other funding started to pour in and generate capital support. The board of directors and steering committee were engaged, and along with Chief Architect Alan Grant, they began the process of the museum campus design and planning.
I remember one thing in particular, the Mercedes, the original Mercedes Museum. It solved a problem that we were trying to figure out, which is how do you take a big car and get it to a multiple level? Because the museum was never going to be on one level. So we kept trying to figure out, what do we do, a giant elevator, and how does it work? And when you have hundreds of cars, how do you get them in and out? And we have to have these exhibits that are transitioned over a day or two. It's an impossible task. The original museum, Mercedes Museum, actually had ramps. And so the ramps were, now these were much steeper and much more difficult to transition around, but it gave us the original idea. For this museum, that is why we ended up doing a double helix. So in theory, if you can find the path, you can actually walk all the way down to the bottom and then turn around, go through the middle and walk all the way back up without crossing the path and without having to double back on yourself and never having to go in one of the elevators.
2008 and 2009 were times of economic challenges and downturn, and the U.S. ultimately sank into a recession. Planned groundbreaking was delayed, credit markets froze, and auto industry giants faced bankruptcy.
Things started to shift around and the project went on a little bit of a hold.
However, in spite of these difficulties, enthusiasm for America's Car Museum continued to gain viability in the automotive world, and membership, sponsorships, and other fundraising persevered.
And then we got back started with a new economy, new direction, new attitude towards it.
This was difficult putting the financing together because, as you can imagine, raising the money was difficult for a brand new organization that had nothing really to show for itself. We were able to do that.
On June 10th, 2011, after being able to secure full funding for museum construction, shovels hit the ground at the public groundbreaking event featuring Speaker Washington State Governor Chris Gregoire.
This is going to be a museum in the truest sense. It will educate visitors about our history, and that story about our love of the automobile is more than just shine and speed.
We started this 13 years ago, and I have to tell you something. Harold's lucky number was, guess what? 13. And so this is befitting that this is indeed the time that we're doing this.
A few months later, on September 24th, the museum held its first major function, Hard Hat and High Heels, where about 700 attendees danced the night away in their finest construction chic. The event was a celebration to thank everyone who had been so vital in their support of the museum to date. June 2012 was time for the grand opening at last. More than 1,100 came to the preview party, including Jay Leno, to celebrate the many donors and sponsors. Nicola Bulgari received the first Master Collector Award, and the museum featured a major Bulgari collection exhibit. Nicola also presented the inaugural Nicola Bulgari Award to General Motors Vice President Ed Welburn for outstanding efforts in the preservation of America's automotive heritage. On Saturday, June 2nd, a throng of thousands watched as CEO David Madeira handed the keys to the museum to Nancy LeMay and opened the door for her to be the first to enter America's Car Museum, bearing the LeMay name.
I know Harold's looking down and saying, well done. Thank you so very, very much.
One of the most notable aspects of LeMay America's Car Museum is the unique grand architectural design of the building itself.
So Alan, you were talking about, the great entry, the narrow bring us through, and then boom.
Yes.
I mean, look at this. Look what you did. Everybody is blown away by this room.
Well, that was one of those things that you and I had all spoken about, and that is, how do we get that narrowed down, as I said. But when you actually look back at what you're looking at, it is meant to be a picture window of Tacoma. This is an important window, because we want to be able to come in and not look at a wall, but to be able to come in and look at the city of Tacoma, and almost give thank you to the city, if you will.
The past 10 years have been an exciting journey of exhibits, events, learning opportunities, and more, which could not have been possible without the passion, dedication, and hard work of its leadership, staff, volunteers, loyal donors, members, and sponsors.
I think Harold would be proud.
I mean, America's Car Museum is something that, unless you really go there, you'll never really understand what it really means.
I think about the LeMay, and it's just, for me as a car collector, fascinating to have one of the gems of the car world so close in my backyard.
This is Detroit. This is America at its industrial finest.
I look at this building and I think it's really beautiful because of the way the people inputted their concept, their ideas into it.
Yeah, you always say the car is the star, but there's just something about the harmony between the design of this facility and the designs of the vehicles.
If anything, it's kind of that dream that I love, that I can see now in reality here in the LeMay.
What has been built out in Tacoma is just second to none.
I'm just grateful, I guess, that it's here and operating.
So proud of being a part of this museum, helping build it.
I think he's happy that what he cared for so much has come about and evolved.
Because there isn't another museum like this anywhere, I know. And especially the fact that you have accomplished this, not in New York, not in Chicago, not in Detroit, not in Pennsylvania, not in Los Angeles, but in Tacoma.
Although LeMay America's Car Museum is the flagship that started it all, from the beginning, the museum embodied the vision that became America's Automotive Trust as a national organization committed to secure automotive heritage and to promote car culture for future generations. AAT brings together like-minded organizations that honor the past, celebrate the present, and drive the future of car culture to make a greater impact.
One of the things that I really appreciate about not just LeMay, but the America's Automotive Trust in a larger sense is the notion of bringing all the various parts of the car world together, from teaching kids about how to restore cars, to preserving these cars, to sharing them with the world. The trust is bringing in a much larger audience. It means that it's more likely for the museum to be around for the long term, as well as bringing new, younger people into the hobby.
AAT founding member organizations include LeMay America's Car Museum in Tacoma, Washington, the America on Wheels Museum in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and the National RPM Foundation, which is dedicated to awarding scholarships, internships, and apprenticeships to youth seeking education in historic automotive preservation and restoration.
To me, it's rather an exciting program. I think that's so important. Well, it's vital that we get young people interested in the older vehicles that are so different than even finding the motor on a new car.
My name is Bill Bandy.
Hi, my name is Kinsey Wilson.
My name is Gregorio Rivera.
I'm 23.
I'm 20 years old.
I'm a 44-year-old U.S. Army veteran.
RPM Foundation, I just want to give you a quick thank you.
I was one of the Scott Henderson X-Cup Scholarship recipients.
I'd like to express my gratitude to the RPM Foundation and its partners for providing me with much-needed internship funds this summer.
You guys ended up helping me fund my room for my learning experience on custom fabrication of sheet metal.
This scholarship will not only allow me to focus more on my studies, but be a constant reminder to always do the best that I can in everything that I do.
AAT's premier membership programs include Club Auto and Concourse Club, which grant access to exclusive drives and special events. All of the entities in America's Automotive Trust, as well as our affiliated partners, work together to foster a strong community where any car enthusiast can thrive, from the classroom to careers to the open road. Happy 10-year anniversary to LeMay America's Car Museum. And here's to another 10, as we continue to grow as a part of America's Automotive Trust. Every car has a story, and everyone has a car story. Keep sharing those stories and the common passion we all share for cars.